I totally agree with you when you say that there's a dominant Western voice in feminism that says, well, there can be such a thing as a Muslim feminism. I think we see that a lot. And we also saw that in the burkini debate, yes, but they're being forced by the males to wear that, and the voice of the woman is totally described as non-existent. The opinion of the Muslim woman is not existent because it's the opinion of a man. So I understand the frustration that a lot of Muslim women and other free thinkers have about it. But I think what the problem is, and I think where they maybe have the right to ask that question is what you said. It's the freedom that you possess over your own body. And if your own body and your own mind dictates, I want to wear a hijab, you should, yes. But I think what the question is and where the friction arises is, when is it your body, when it abides by rules set up by a dominantly male doctrine, a male Quran, by Muhammad, by Allah, they are all male. And it's a patriarchal system. Middle Eastern countries are mostly patriarchal. I'm not talking about in house settings. I'm not talking about what happens behind closed doors. I think we can all say that there are a lot of Middle Eastern households, especially in Iran also, where the women are the rulers. But I'm talking about politics. I'm talking about what happens in the city, when in the legislature, what happens when you talk about law. Because that's also something that people forget. When you talk about a patriarchal society, of course you don't mean that the women are all, follow their men. No, but they have a voice inside the house, but how loud is their voice, like when it comes to law, when it comes to their rights for divorce, for abortion, things like that. They are all set up by mostly dominantly male rules.
Yeah, but then at the same time, I think, well, it's normal that you raise that question, but then at the same time, white feminism is blind to the fact that our society is also still patriarchal, and so we're maybe a little bit more progressed in that sense than what's happening in Iran now these days. Or I'm not an expert on how these countries are developing, because I don't live there, so I should not talk about that. But it's in these Muslim versus white feminism debates that's always ignored by the white feminists, I think. And and at the same time we should also address that, like, we can make people aware, but I completely have ears for the fact that a woman in a hijab says to me when I'm in my short skirt talking about women's rights, like, yeah, but you're wearing a short skirt. Men aren't wearing short skirts either. Like, women, the fact that we're like discussing what women should be wearing still in our country, that we have to defend if it's feministic or not, is already explaining that. Like, why aren't we talking about what men are wearing? Like, that's enough to prove it, I think. And that's what I'm so obsessed about, to make people see that. Like,
no, I definitely agree that there's a blind spot when it comes to seeing that. Yes, we also live in a patriarchal society here. And no, there's still not equality, of course not. And yes, there are still rules, especially when it comes to dressing, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to provocation of sexuality. The woman is still kind of placed into the arena of the whore versus the Madonna. I think that's still very dominant, also in Western culture. Whereas the man is still the bachelor, A man in his 50s chasing young women is a bachelor. There's nothing wrong. I mean, those are things that absolutely are still true. But I do feel that even though there's still a lot of inequality, I think the fact that we can openly debate it, we can openly talk about it, we can openly make a theater performance, we can openly try to change something in the law. I mean, it happened in 1991 with the abortion law. The king didn't want to sign it. They almost dethroned him. So that's something that you wouldn't see, for example, in a country as Iran. And that's the big difference for me, that we can at least try to fight against something that we see and we pick up. and also like one woman makes a video about how she's being harassed in the streets of Brussels, and it's national news. I wasn't completely on her side. I think it was over dramatized, that video, you know, Femme de la Rue.
Yeah.
But there's ears for that. There's magazines that
Also
write
too-
about it. There's newspapers that write about it. There's no fear of censorship, and that's something dominant in societies like Iran. I'm not going to talk about other societies in the Middle East. That's what scares me about that male-dominant society. How far does their influence go, and how, when can you talk about indoctrination? When can you talk about brain washing when it's so dominant? The newspapers there are censored.
Yeah.
The videos at the television station are censored. So
Yeah.
there is no means for the women to talk about it. Maybe a little bit, yes, but not too much, because they're afraid if they talk too much, they can't just say, you know what, fuck Mohammed. Yeah, I would love to see one of them say that. We can
Yeah.
we can curse any apostle we want, huh?
Yeah, but at the same time, I also think what is different is it's a different debate. Muslim women in Belgium are different Muslim women than in Iran, and they are different non-religious Muslim descent women than in Iran. They are more Belgian than they are Moroccan or Iranian or whatever. So and at the same time, I think religion and feminism should not should not be exclusively excluded from each other. It has to have space in there as well, and at the same time also there are a lot of people, for example, who are gay and religious, and how can you include that, and how can you not be a hypocrite if you are not a hypocrite? You can believe in more than one thing, but you just have to get the space to internalize that, and that's not happening for Muslim women at these days.
One last thing I want to say, because you said it and I thought yes, is I was like I think there's a big difference, as like what you said, being a feminist Muslim woman, you know, in Egypt, for example, or in Iran, or if they're fully convinced, that's a totally different situation. I wouldn't maybe say I know everything about their situation, but what I do think about the Muslim women, especially the newer generation in Belgium, is that I think we should really also ask the question, where does identity and seeking your identity come in? Because I think a lot of the women of the newer generation actually maybe hold on to the hijab more as a cry for identity, forming a group in this world that's not including them. There is no multicultural ground, I think, here.
I'm getting goosebumps
if
now
they
because
felt,
you're so right.
because if they felt that they were included, would they maybe hold on to this hijab? I think it's more of an anchor for identity than anything else. For some of them, I don't want to insult people. So that's something we should really pose also, maybe by talking to them. But is it more because you're defining your group. Everyone wants to be a part of a group. You're defining your group. You're elevating yourself, and you're rightly so. We do that also maybe by fashion choices, maybe by music, maybe by going to a concert, working together, trying to say something. But if that's your means of identifying yourself, maybe that's not especially exactly what you want to do. But that's the only thing that's in your power to do, and then maybe that feminism is just a cry, or maybe just another effect or something, or another something easy that you can hold on to when you actually want to achieve something else.